What is going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today I want to talk to you about Faraday Future, ticker is FFIE. I want to go over some of the recent data points, what shorts are doing, and some of the latest updates. More specifically, what has people, I guess, a little bit on edge with Faraday. So I'm going to go over all that. Make sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And with that, let's get right to it. So based on Friday, it did go down 2.5%, had a low of 19 cents. So it kind of bounced off of a very strong support that I'll touch on in a second. A little bit more lower volume, but keep in mind that's kind of normal for a Friday. So 43 million shares being traded, 67 is the average. And at the time of doing this video, the only real SEC filing and press release is kind of one among the same, but it is talking about this. So they did add something to their upcoming shareholder meeting that once again isn't necessarily the best. So we already do know based on this that they do have the whole reverse stock split as a proposed item. So anywhere from a 1-to-2 to a 1-to-90 reverse stock split. But one thing that they did not add, which is kind of making it very obvious and people are reading it for what it is that they are proposing that the authorized shares, which as of right now you can see is currently 1.6 or rounding up 1.7 billion shares, that stays unchanged. So in case you guys do not know, let's say for instance they do a 1-to-2 reverse stock split. Well, the stock price will adjust, everyone's shares will adjust accordingly to that 1-to-2 ratio. So if you have 1,000 shares, then now you will have 500. Stock price will go up by 2. And same goes for all the insiders, preferred shares, everything else will all get adjusted. Just based on this, the authorized shares will not. So meaning this 1.6 billion is going to stay the same. And what does that ultimately mean? That means Faraday basically does have a magic button that they can essentially dilute. So just to put that in perspective, right now there is 1.39 billion outstanding shares for Faraday, okay? So that means they could still dilute a little bit more to reach to that 1.69 or 1.7 billion shares. So let's say they do that reverse stock split, a 2-to-1 or a 1-to-2 ratio, for instance. Well, then that means that the outstanding share count equivalently would be roughly around 700 million for argument's sake. So that means they can still, from that stage, dilute it all the way up to 1.7 billion again. So not necessarily the best. And in reality, if you take a step back, this does boil down to purely the fact that, do you trust management? Are they being efficient with their money? If not, if they're just paying out random people, kind of giving themselves bonuses, then yes, that is, and this whole situation is extremely sketchy. One stock that is currently going through this right now that I'm covering under my other channel, Financial Journey, is Mullen. Ticker is MULN. So they basically have a 5 billion authorized shares. So you have to know the difference between authorized shares and outstanding shares. Outstanding shares is basically what they have actually issued. Authorized shares is their cap on what they can issue up to. So once again, in Mullen's case, they did a reverse stock split. In their case, though, they didn't really need to readjust. They already had this fun other additional disclaimer in their proposed items, whereas Faraday, they must have forgot to add it. So this is why it's being very obvious about this. And clearly the market doesn't like it based on the action that has happened on the 6th. And most likely this is going to be something that is still ingrained in a lot of people's minds. But still, moving on from that though, in Mullen's case, they did a whole reverse stock split. So they kind of, before the whole reverse stock split, they diluted up to their max. They had that reverse stock split and it kind of reset their dilution. So same goes for Faraday, especially more so if they do a 1-to-90 reverse stock split, then that does open up the door for them to really dilute again up to that 1.69 billion shares. So once again, let me know you guys' thoughts on that in the comments below. When it comes down to it, shorts have been taking advantage of that gray and kind of negative aspect of Faraday. But once again, like I've said in the past, Faraday's operations have been really doing fairly well. The only thing that it's really been struggling with, and most likely will continue to struggle with, at least in the foreseeable future, is debt. So once again, they did do that S3 recently, but at the end of the day, they also will be able to, I guess if you want to call it that, do this whole reverse stock split, and that will help them dilution wise. But still, back to the topic of shorts. So right now, short score is currently 78, utilization is 94.17%. And as you can see right here, shorts did return 4.59 million shares on Friday. So that's kind of a little bit more of an interesting twist that's been happening. They did increase, I believe, on Thursday pretty significantly in regards to obviously that news that did come out, but 19.95% of the free float is being shorted, and that works out to be 237.74 million shares overall are being shorted. Cost to borrow average is 10.31%. So once again, let me know you guys' thoughts on that in the comments below. As far as data points, so as you can see, this is all the options activity that did occur. For instance, on Friday, there was $16,000 in call premiums that was purchased versus 6,000 in puts. So of course, based on this, there has been a little bit more of an increase in calls, insinuating people do anticipate it to go up. So once again, let me know you guys' thoughts on that. As far as big money getting in, unfortunately, it just hasn't been there. The 23rd clearly was just a lot of institutions readjusting for the tail end of Q2. But as far as recently, it looks like big money isn't getting into Faraday because typically they want companies that can actually ramp up on production. So Faraday eventually will get there. Just in the short term, they do probably just have a lot of eyes on it, just watching, making sure that it can actually get to that production level. So again, just be aware of that. And as far as this, stochastic is currently at 3, which is considered very oversold. So if there is a good piece of news that does come out that doesn't have any strings attached essentially to it, this is where you can actually see a very good bump up in the stock price. And Faraday has been one of those stocks that when it goes up and it has a lot of good momentum, it really does go up very fast. But outside of that though, some of the next big support and resistance points that you need to really watch for, looking at the fib levels, with it being at 19.5 cents. So 18.3 cents is the next big support. So right above that, you'll see roughly, most likely around 18.5 cents, a very, very strong support level. Clearly 19 cents as well as a kind of minor one, but this 18.5 is fairly strong. So you need to really watch for that to hold. Vice versa, 29.5 cents. So with this huge gap in play, that does insinuate that most likely there's going to be a lot of volatility, at least in the short term. So you're going to see a lot of kind of day traders getting in and out of Faraday, but once production does start to kick in, then this is where you're going to see a lot more long investors versus actual just day traders and stuff like that. And looking right here as well, you can tell a number of retail investors have just been getting out, which is kind of weird. It normally doesn't really match with institutions. So it does show that retail and institutions at the same time are getting out of Faraday. But like I've said in the past, when things go good for Faraday, they go up very, very fast. And vice versa can be said on the way down. So let me know you guys' thoughts on Faraday. Give yourself a shout out if you have been buying, selling, holding. What is your take on Faraday? And what's your take on this? On this, I guess, fun disclaimer that they added? Do you think this is legitimate? Do you think that this is just going to help the stock bleed down, or do you think, what's your guys' take on this additional disclaimer? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. One final thing, even though Faraday's been going up, down, sideways, take advantage of free promos, and that is with Moomoo. Link in the description below and also the comments. This promo has been extended up until the 15th of July, and as you can see, throw $100 at the account, get 5 free stocks plus a $100 cash reward. So this legitimately is the best deal that you can get out there. It's literally the pure definition of free. Link in the description below and also the comments. With that said, I appreciate you guys watching, and let's all make a lot of money eventually on Faraday.